When my stepdaughter looked me in the eye and told me to disappear, I thought it was just teenage rebellion. When my wife agreed, I thought my marriage was over. But when I discovered why they turned against me, who had been whispering in their ears, it wasn't just betrayal. It was a setup. And the man behind it wasn't just a bad father, he was a professional con artist. What started as a painful goodbye soon turned into a high-stakes game of deception, manipulation, and revenge. And this time, I wasn't the one walking away. I woke up to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on me. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand beside me. 13 missed calls. Emily, my wife, ex-wife? I wasn't sure anymore. 3 from Lena, my stepdaughter. 2 from my sister, Megan. 27 unread messages. For voicemails. I hadn't listened to any of them. Instead, I sat there in the guest bedroom of my best friend Jake's apartment, staring at the traffic below. Less than 12 hours ago, I was standing in the middle of my own home, holding a duffel bag and listening to my wife tell me calmly, as if it meant nothing, that maybe they really would be better off without me. The night replayed in my mind like a film I wished I could turn off. Dinner had started like any other. The tension had been building for weeks, small things that I kept brushing aside, doors closing just a little too hard when I entered the room, hushed conversations that stopped the moment I stepped in, the way Emily avoided my gaze when I tried to talk about it. I told myself it was normal. Teenagers pulled away, wives got stressed, people had bad days. But that night, when I reminded Lena to put her phone away at the dinner table, a rule we had all agreed on, she snapped. "God, why are you always policing everything I do?" she shouted, throwing her phone onto the table. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" I barely had time to react before she stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Play dad? I already have one," she spat. "Why don't you just disappear?" Silence. A cold, suffocating silence. My eyes flicked to Emily, expecting, what? Mediation? Support? Instead, she set down her fork and sighed. "Maybe we'd all be better off if you did." I felt something inside me break. 3 years. 3 years of helping with school projects, of late-night ice cream runs, of movie nights where she'd fall asleep halfway through and I'd carry her to bed. 3 years of being there when her real dad wasn't. And just like that, I was nothing. I stood up slowly, pushing my plate away. "Okay," I said. Lena's expression flickered, hesitation, uncertainty, but she didn't take it back. "Okay, what?" she challenged. "If that's how you both feel," I said, my voice strangely calm, "then okay." I walked upstairs, ignoring the murmured voices behind me, and packed a bag. No one followed me. No one stopped me. By the time I reached the front door, Emily was leaning against the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. "So you're just leaving?" she said flatly. "That's your solution?" "You said you'd be better off," I replied, patting my pockets for my keys. "I'm respecting that." She hesitated. "That's not I didn't mean." But whatever she had meant, it didn't matter anymore. I stepped outside, feeling the cold air bite at my skin. "I'll be at Jake's," I said. "I'll figure out something permanent soon." Emily didn't respond. "And Lena?" She never came downstairs. The coffee in my hand had long gone cold, but I barely noticed. My mind kept returning to that one moment before I left, the moment I realized something was wrong. The house had been off. Too quiet. Unsettling. My eyes had drifted around the living room, searching for what felt different. Then it hit me. The pictures. The framed photographs lining the walls, the ones on the mantel above the fireplace, all of them looked different. I stepped closer, staring at the large frame from our trip to Yellowstone last summer. It was still there. They were still there. But I wasn't. Every single picture of me had been carefully removed. Cropped out. Erased. As if I had never been part of their lives at all. And that's when I knew this wasn't just a bad night. This had been planned. And I had walked right into it. The house had erased me. Not just the people in it, but the very walls, the memories, the frozen moments in time that had once made me believe I belonged. And yet, here I was, sitting in a cramped guest room, staring at my buzzing phone, knowing that something had shifted overnight. 13 missed calls. 27 unread messages. The same people who told me to leave were now suddenly desperate to reach me. I knew better than to answer. Instead, I scrolled through my messages, scanning for something, anything that would explain this sudden change. My eyes landed on Lena's name. "I messed up. Please, just call me." She had meant every word when she told me to disappear. I had seen it in her eyes, heard it in her voice. She had wanted me gone. So why now? Why reach out? Before I get into what I found out next, what changed everything, I want to connect with all of you, my incredible viewers. Have you ever felt completely erased from someone's life? Like you were never even there to begin with? Drop a broken heart in the comments if you've ever experienced something similar. And if you've ever had to fight for your place in a family, hit that like button because trust me, this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. I was still staring at my phone when Jake walked in, a fresh cup of coffee in his hand. "You look like hell," he said, dropping into the chair across from me. "Thanks," I muttered, rubbing a hand over my face. Jake took a sip of his coffee, then casually slid his phone across the table. "Take a look at this." I frowned and glanced down. The screen showed a familiar face, one I hadn't seen in years. Ryan, Lena's biological father. The same Ryan who had vanished when she was 10, leaving Emily to raise her alone. The same Ryan who had ignored child support orders, missed birthdays, skipped school plays. The man who, the last time I saw him, had been 3 states away chasing some new business opportunity that, surprise, never existed. He was back. And he was here. I felt my stomach twist as I scrolled through the pictures. The most recent one stopped me cold. Lena, sitting at a cafe, smiling. Across from Ryan. The caption read, "Real family time, right heart." I exhaled sharply, a bitter taste rising in my throat. So that was it. This wasn't just some teenage tantrum. This had been orchestrated. Ryan had come back, and somehow he had convinced Lena that I was the problem. That I was the reason he had stayed away. That I was the one standing between them. And she had believed him. The pieces clicked together too perfectly. The sudden coldness. The whispering behind closed doors. The pictures carefully altered to erase me. Jake must have seen something on my face because his voice dropped. "What are you gonna do?" I clenched my jaw. "Find out what he wants." Because Ryan never came back without a reason. And whatever it was this time, I knew it wasn't good. I didn't text Lena back. I didn't call Emily. Instead, I reached out to someone who wouldn't lie to me. My sister, Megan. It only took 2 rings before she picked up. "Took you long enough?" "Yeah," I muttered. "Look, I need to know, have you seen Lena?" There was a pause. "Then, I ran into her yesterday." Something in her voice made the hair on my arms rise. "Where?" I pressed. "The mall," Megan said. She wasn't alone. I gripped the phone tighter. "Ryan?" "Yeah," she confirmed. "But that's not what worried me." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Megan hesitated, like she was choosing her next words carefully. "She looked off," she said finally. Not scared exactly, but nervous. Jumpy. Like she was trying to convince herself of something she didn't believe. My pulse pounded. And Megan's voice softened. I overheard part of their conversation. I braced myself. What did she say? Megan sighed. He was talking about a business. An opportunity. He told her if she trusted him, if she chose him, they'd be set for life. That this was her chance to prove she was really his daughter. The coffee in my stomach churned. Ryan had always been a liar. A manipulator. But this was worse than I'd expected. He wasn't just trying to win Lena back. He was trying to use her. I pressed a hand to my forehead. Did she seem, like she believed him? Megan finished. I don't know. Maybe. I hope not. My jaw tightened. Thanks, Meg. Mark, But I had already hung up. Because now I knew the truth. Ryan hadn't come back for Lena. He had come back for her money. And Lena had no idea she was about to lose everything. Lena had no idea she was about to lose everything. I sat in silence, gripping my phone as Megan's words echoed in my head. Ryan had never cared about family, only opportunity. And now he had convinced my stepdaughter that siding with him would prove her loyalty. I needed to act fast. There was only one person who could tell me exactly what was happening, Lena. I drove to her school, waiting near the parking lot as students trickled out. When I spotted her, she was walking alone, her arms wrapped around herself, head down. I stepped forward. Lena. She froze. Slowly, she turned, and for a moment I saw something flicker in her expression, guilt, hesitation, maybe even relief. Then, just as quickly, her face hardened. What are you doing here? I kept my voice calm. I think we need to talk. She scoffed. You mean you want to tell me how I'm ruining my life? How my dad is some terrible person? I think you already know that, I said carefully. Her jaw clenched. You don't know anything. Lena, I know about the business deal. She flinched. It's none of your He's using you, I said, stepping closer. Just like he's used everyone else. He's not here for you, Lena. He's here for your money. For a split second, her bravado cracked. Then she shook her head fiercely. No. He believes in me. He thinks I can actually make something of myself. He said he's proud of me. A sharp pain twisted in my chest. You don't have to prove anything to him. She blinked rapidly, looking away. You're just jealous. Because he came back, and you, her voice wavered. You were always the replacement. It was a calculated jab, but I let it roll off. If that's true, then why did he ask you for money? Lena stiffened. I pressed on. Why is he pushing you to invest in something he won't even show you the details of? Why did he tell you that choosing him meant proving yourself? Parents don't do that, Lena. Scammers do. She swallowed hard. I could see the war waging inside her, the doubt creeping in, the walls she'd built to protect herself from the truth. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down. Ryan. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Lena, I said softly. You already know the answer. You just don't want to see it. She exhaled shakily. Then, to my surprise, she turned the screen toward me. Then show me, she whispered. I took the phone, heart pounding. You sure? She nodded. I tapped the call button. The line rang once. Twice. Then Ryan's voice came through, all smooth confidence. Hey, sweetheart. What's up? Lena hesitated, then put the call on speaker. Dad, I was thinking. About the investment. You really think it's a sure thing? Of course, he said immediately. Best decision you'll ever make. You trust me, don't you? Lena glanced at me. Yeah, but could you explain it again? Just so I can be sure. There was a pause. Then a chuckle. Sweetheart, you don't need to understand all the details. That's what I'm here for. You just have to believe in me. This is about family. About us. About you proving that you're really in this with me. Her hands tightened around her phone. I watched as the last bit of her defenses crumbled. Ryan kept talking, oblivious. All you gotta do is sign over the transfer today, and we'll be on our way to building something big. You'll finally be part of something real. Lena inhaled sharply. I saw the moment it hit her. She wasn't his daughter. She was his mark. Lena's voice was steady when she spoke. I'll think about it. She hung up before he could respond. For a long moment, she just stood there, her breathing shallow. Then, slowly, she looked at me, eyes glistening. I was so stupid, she whispered. I shook my head. No, you weren't. He's good at this. He makes you want to believe. Her face crumpled. I wanted him to love me. I exhaled, my chest tight. I know. She looked down, her voice barely audible. What do I do now? I took a deep breath. We end this. Together. For the first time in weeks, she didn't pull away. Lena didn't say a word on the drive home. She sat curled against the door, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the passing streets like they belonged to another world. I wanted to tell her that it wasn't her fault, that she hadn't done anything wrong. But I knew better than to push. She had to process this on her own. As we pulled into the driveway, she finally spoke. He's going to call again, she said, her voice small. I nodded. Yeah. And when he does, we'll be ready. Emily was waiting at the door. The second she saw us, her face crumpled with relief. Lena. Lena brushed past her without a word. She needed time. Emily turned to me instead. What happened? I took a deep breath. She knows. Emily covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes filling with tears. Oh God. I stepped closer. Emily, listen to me. Ryan isn't just using Lena. He's using other families too. He's got a whole web of people buying into his scam. If we don't stop him, it's not just Lena who's going to get hurt. She swallowed hard, then nodded. What do we do? I pulled out my phone. We make sure he never does this again. The plan was simple. Lena would call Ryan and tell him she was ready to transfer the money. She'd ask to meet in person. Meanwhile, I had already reached out to a financial crimes investigator. Someone who had been trying to track Ryan for years but never had enough proof to take him down. Until now. The meeting was set for that night at a high-end restaurant downtown. Ryan wouldn't suspect a thing. He thought he was winning. He thought Lena was still under his spell. He had no idea she was walking in with evidence. We arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes early. Lena's hands trembled as she smoothed down her dress. What if he knows? He doesn't, I said. He's too arrogant to think you'd ever turn on him. She swallowed hard, then glanced up at me. You're coming in with me, right? I hesitated. He won't let his guard down if I do, but I'll be close. She exhaled slowly. Okay. A moment later, Ryan walked in. He was all charm, grinning as he strode over to Lena and pulled her into a hug. There's my girl. Lena didn't hug him back. Ryan didn't seem to notice. Let's grab a table. We've got big things to discuss. I slipped into a seat at the bar, close enough to watch but far enough not to be noticed. My phone was already recording. At first, it played out exactly how I expected. Ryan leaned in, voice low and persuasive. He spun his usual web of lies. How this was a once-in-a-lifetime investment. How Lena was different from all the others. How she was proving she was really family by trusting him. And then he made his mistake. Once you sign over the funds, he said, I'll cut you in for 20% of the next round of investors. Lena stiffened. Next round. Ryan chuckled. Sweetheart, this is just the beginning. There's a whole system here. You think we're stopping at one deal? I caught the flicker of realization in Lena's expression. The moment she understood just how deep this went. And then she did something I didn't expect. She smiled. Ryan leaned back, satisfied. Knew you were smart. Lena nodded. I recorded everything you just said. Ryan's grin froze. Lena lifted her phone, pressing the screen. And so did the police. Ryan's face drained of color. He turned just as two officers stepped forward. Ryan Carter? He bolted. He shoved the table over, sending glasses shattering to the floor. He made it halfway across the restaurant before another officer blocked the exit. And just like that, it was over. The trial was swift. Turned out Ryan had scammed nearly a dozen families, raking in millions under the guise of his fake investments. He was sentenced to 20 years. Lena testified. She stood in front of the courtroom, voice steady, and told them everything. When it was over, she sat beside me outside the courthouse, staring at the sky. I kept thinking he'd turn around, she murmured. That, at the last second, he'd say he was sorry. I didn't say anything. After a long moment, she turned to me. I'm sorry for what I said. About you. About disappearing. I looked at her, my chest tight. I never needed you to call me Dad, Lena. I just needed you to know I was never leaving. She nodded. Then, slowly, she reached over and took my hand. For the first time in weeks, I finally felt like I belonged again. At its core, this story isn't just about betrayal or deception, it's about the power of truth, the resilience of family, and the courage to stand up against manipulation. It's about how love isn't defined by blood but by the people who show up, time and time again, even when it's hard. Mark wasn't Lena's biological father, but he was the one who protected her when it mattered most. And in the end, Lena learned a painful but valuable lesson. Real family doesn't demand blind loyalty. Real family doesn't make you prove yourself. Real family stands by you even when you make mistakes. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think about this story? Comment 2 if you liked it, or 7 if you didn't. And if you've ever had to fight for your place in a family, or if you believe that real love is earned through actions, hit that like button and let's get this story out to more people. And hey, if you enjoy these kinds of deep, emotional stories that challenge the way we see relationships, make sure to subscribe to Mr.HeartVibes so you never miss another one. Turn on notifications and join our amazing community of people who know that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that make us feel something real.